Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Jungle Roar podcast brought to you by our great friends at Prize Picks and All Good Home Improvements. This is the post-buy edition, if you will, of the Jungle Roar pod, and there was big-time news made on Monday afternoon at Paycor Stadium as Joe Burrow returned to practice. They activated the 21-day window for him to return off injured reserve, of course, from his left big toe injury and subsequent surgery back in September. Joe Burrow back on the practice field, back with me to discuss what all of this means for the Bengals, not only this week, but going forward for the rest of the 2025 season, is Charlie Clifford of WLWT, otherwise known as Channel 5, here in Cincinnati. Charlie, thanks for taking time. How was your bye week, by the way?
Trags, it was boring, and that's all we wanted, right?
That's good.
Quiet
boring is good.
And boring, and we show up to the stadium yesterday, and everyone's running around, and oh, wait, Zach Taylor's going to talk at this time, and there's going to be an email here in a minute, and
you know what we thought.
What do we got? What do we got here? And maybe this was part of the plan all along. I'm interested to hear. Obviously, that's what Zach Taylor has said, so that's not the best tease there, but so much to get into here.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we kid about it, we joke about it, but when I did hear the fact that there was this unknown email coming out, mystery email, if you will, coming out at 1 o'clock, first thing we all thought is, okay, they're making a coaching change there. I didn't think anybody thought that Zach Taylor was getting the axe, but it could have been someone like Al Golden. There was speculation given how the defense had been playing. Who knows? Maybe somebody in the front office. Maybe they were going to make a major shakeup in the front office. But when you think about what yesterday really was all about, it was about trying to get some good momentum going forward out of the bye week.
And I think back in the beginning, okay, if that's 8 weeks and Burrow can be cleared, we're hearing he can be cleared at 8 weeks to practice. Oh, that'll be the perfect way to boost this team wherever they're at into the final 8 games. And I don't think anyone envisioned 1-6, unfortunately, when they sat down to map out that plan. I think the number one thing yesterday, Trags, at no point did Joe Burrow say, I am absolutely playing no matter the record.
Oh,
that
no,
did
and that
not
was
come out of his mouth.
Absolutely. And I, by the way, 3-6 you meant. Bengals are 3-6.
Yes, but 1-6 since the injury.
Correct.
Yeah, since the injury, since it happened. Yeah.
That's what I thought you meant. Okay. I just want to clarify there. But what I wrote on CLNS Cincy.com for Tuesday is the fact that Joe Burrow is playing this very, very much coy and playing it very much close to the vest because he doesn't want to commit one way or another. And I don't think, frankly, the team wants to commit one way or another as to whether or not he's going to come back. Because let's face it, if this team is 3-8 going into the Baltimore game on Thanksgiving, he ain't coming back.
I don't know. I think when you sit him down and you have that conversation, knowing the competitor he is, if there's a mathematical chance to still win the AFC North, I think he's going to play. Now, if somehow he doesn't make it back for Thanksgiving and they lose the next 3 and you get to Buffalo and it's elimination time already with what, 5 games left at that point, then, okay, Joe, you know, this is just not worth it. Do you agree? And still, I think he would have to, you know, they do not want to upset him. He just put in all this work. And if the doctors are saying, go ahead, run out there, you have no chance of, there's no higher risk of you re-aggravating this. It's going to be really hard for that. At the end of the day, the Bengals do not want to upset Joe Burrow. I think that's, so I'm not, you know, I'm saying it's more likely than not he plays this year. But you're right. Getting a win in Pittsburgh would completely change the course of this conversation. Because if you lose Sunday and you know the train that's rolling into the station the next week with Mike Vrabel and the Patriots, this is going to sound a lot different the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week than it does today.
Yeah, and I do see your point. He's a competitor, and he just doesn't want to throw away a season, even though the team may be out of it. I understand that. But let's be very clear here, Charlie, that he is coming back with very heavy protective equipment in his shoe. And he admitted that on Monday, that he's got a lot of equipment in there, I think, or hardware was the word he used. He's got a lot of hardware in that left shoe to protect the ligament that was just surgically repaired. And when you talk about smaller tendons, the feet or the hands, and obviously he's been through the hands before, I think you don't risk it unless you know he's 100% coming back. Like he is totally clear and at 100% strength. And I guess if he says that he is, then the decision is his whether or not to come back. But what I want to ask you is, how much do you think the team is directing him what to do now that he's back on the field?
In terms of
how much
he daily
yes.
I just think it's a joint decision. But, if he's adamant, if he's really adamant and they aren't mathematically eliminated, I think he's going to play. Because you saw them win 5 in a row at the end of last year, and they're waiting and watching on the couches as Carson Wentz is throwing for 30 yards in Denver and 3 interceptions. And that game's over after a quarter. But there was still that opportunity to get in because, we've seen before, the hot teams in December, that's really, that's all you need. You need a spot in the dance, and you need to be playing at the top of your game in December. And the only other area Joe was very delicate yesterday when he was talking about the defense. I mean, he really painted as gentle of a picture you could with that unit right now, complimenting how they played to start the season and then saying, the roles kind of flip-flopped and now the defense has struggled the last few weeks. I mean, that's putting very lightly what we've seen, knowing that if this team was just 5-4, if they just got a couple stops on those final 2 possessions against the Jets and Bears, this is a complete, he walks out there yesterday and says, hey, great job across the board. We're tied for the division lead. I'm practicing, and I can't wait to be back here. We're going to be in this fighting tooth and nail to the end. Instead, you've seen the messaging change a little bit after that loss to the Packers. Zach Taylor was adamant, we're still going to be in this. We are going to, be in this to the finish line. And then after that loss to the Bears, the messaging shifted to this can't be a lost season. It was very subtle, but those are 2 different kind of paths here. And, that's the reality of 3-6. I mean, even if you have 2 units that are in the middle of the pack, I'm very curious to see what they deploy defensively Sunday, Trags, because you just saw Pittsburgh be able to do essentially nothing on Sunday night in Los Angeles.
I mean, I think there's still hope for the Bengals if they go out and take care of business in the next 2 weeks. But we said that about the Jets and the Bears. They couldn't. See, here's the thing that's troubling for a lot of Bengal fans. How do I expect them to do the basics to beat Pittsburgh and New England when they couldn't even close out the Jets and the Bears in back-to-back weeks? And I think the Jet game is still more damning, even though they gave up, in a wild ending to the Bears. It was more back and forth. The loss to the Jets, Charlie, is much more damning. Would you not agree?
Yeah, totally. No, the Bear game, I mean, I know everyone was getting on Zach Taylor for the comment last week. When I went back and watched the tape, it was in relation to the question about Orlando Brown and the penalty that moved him back, 4-point play there where they had to settle for a field goal after having it 1st and goal. And he said, I really thought we left some points out there. What? You scored 42. The game was 41-27. That was what the game was. And then you had this outlier magic, when the Bears get in don't screw it up mode, and Flacco, credit to him, it was a 41-27 game that you lost. And that's why that comment came from. And it was the reverse with the Jets when you had a 2-score lead on a quarterback who had the team owner 3 days before saying our quarterback isn't any good, that's why we're losing, and the trade deadline's hovering, and half the roster's running out of the tunnel thinking, is this going to be my last game as a Jet? I hope so. I hope this is the last time I have to take the field with this team. Without question, that's the one that you just, we've kind of asked Zach, why has it been so tough to win at home? You can't lose at home. You can't lose to the Jets at home. I just, again, unless there's a miraculous turnaround here, that's what we'll be talking about this winter. What happened those 2 weeks, and why couldn't they keep this on the rails, and whose fault is it? And how much do you want to, how much do you want to hold people accountable? Or is it, Joe got hurt and it probably wouldn't have mattered either way. I don't know. So someone upstairs, that's their decision to make.
Charlie Clifford of Channel 5 here in Cincinnati. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right, that never gets old. So keep the season rolling on. Prize Picks. Keep rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Josh Allen's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns? Well, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Also, follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one simple click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use that code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Back with Charlie Clifford of Channel 5 here in Cincinnati. How did you think Joe Burrow handled the question about Joe Flacco?
Oh, great. I mean, I don't know if there were too many ways to change that. Was there really just he's attempted to save our season. He's attempted to, he's done everything he can.
Here's why I asked, Charlie.
Yeah.
And it's because there's a 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is, does Joe Burrow really want to get back because he's watching what Flacco is doing with the offense? And Flacco has done an amazing job with the offense, but it's a different looking offense with Joe Flacco in there. And I think, and rightfully so, Joe Burrow probably feels a little bit possessive and parental about this offense. This is his offense, his guys. He wants to run the offense the way he sees fit. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think that does factor into Joe Burrow wanting to get back on the field as soon as possible. And that being said, he has done an amazing job working through all of the rehab to get through this and speed it up by about a month. But I do think Joe Burrow wants to get back on that field as soon as possible, especially given the way Joe Flacco has looked.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy the Flacco, those are my guy, he's 41. They get along. He mentioned the personality stuff and the meeting rooms. Burrow is really appreciated because Flacco's kind of like me. He's quiet. He'll throw out these one-liners though that really crack me up, and it just sounds like they really enjoy each other. And
I'm not
there's
trying to stir
there's
the
no
pot.
supplanting. I know you aren't. I just don't think that's part of his drive. I don't see that.
Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, depending on what Flacco wants to do, thinking of next year, think about what, Mike Brown, Katie Blackburn would say if Flacco at the end of this year goes, you know what, I kind of like Cincinnati. Maybe my kids, they come out here next year. I just keep them in New Jersey. It's an easy flight. You guys have kind of shown you need a steady backup.
Yep.
I don't want to go lose in whatever town. I've done that rodeo. I do want to do one more year. I really like Burrow. We really hit it off. I'll come back. I'll come back. I'll be the backup. Whoa, what? We're gonna buy you a house. What neighborhood do you want to live? Well, let's put some money aside to make sure your family can fly out, any long weekend or vice versa. What? I mean, they would be elated.
Willing. So
they would be elated.
This is a tricky, and I think the Joe Flacco storyline with the Bengals is a fascinating one, because do you want to go out and get a younger backup, or is Jake Browning still your guy as the backup? Or do they look to go in a different direction? But if Joe Flacco wants to come back as purely a backup, I think it'd be a great move, because he has been a tremendous influence and impact in that locker room. He has been a very steadying hand. Given the way the last two games ended, you look at Joe Flacco and you don't see somebody who is losing his mind. He is very calm.
Yeah.
He's very almost paternal in his oversight of the locker room.
Great word. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. That's a great point. I mean, and who knows? Maybe in his mind, he knows all the time on task. He knows the work and the grind that this is. Jake Browning didn't take a meaningful snap last year. So maybe he doesn't sign up for. I want the chance to compete. I want the chance to start. Obviously, that wouldn't be here. So that's item number what, Trags, on the alphabet? Maybe Y or X, of the Bengals.
Okay.
But we joke, but
I think it actually is a little bit higher than that, Charlie, because we see
we just
what happens when
right. We just if we haven't learned that by now, that hey, you better have another reliever in that bullpen. Every win is so critical, especially with the third wild card and 7 teams getting in, and that if they just would have done this. I'm with you. I mean, that's a huge. We're underselling that. It's a big deal.
You know what is probably at the top of the alphabet in terms of the Bengals offseason? The defense. They have got to fix it. And you could even do subparts of the A1, A2, A3, A4, safety, linebacker, defensive end, defensive tackle. Charlie, I don't understand why the Bengals still can't get the defense right, and why they chose to ignore the safety position. Two areas where the Bengals have failed miserably this year, in tackling and in coverage assignments, blown assignments down the field. They still can't seem to get the defense right, get guys in the right position. Some of that falls on Al Golden. Certainly getting guys lined up, getting them on the field on time, and getting them lined up. That's Al Golden, and that's certainly some of the leaders of the defense on the field. That's their responsibility. But the talent, there's got to be more talent for Al Golden to work with.
Yeah, and I like this because we're agreeing, but we have subtle disagreements in these topics. I think it starts and ends with the line play, the inconsistent ability to get any semblance of pressure, to dial up any sort of blitz packages that we've seen. Oh my gosh, this quarterback, they're playing on their heels. They're getting conservative because they can't handle what's being thrown at them. That hasn't happened in 2.5 years here. And, we saw last night again in Green Bay. It's just so weird seeing a football game 3-0 at half, but all the numbers, how did they lose this game? Jordan Love was 0 for 11 when pressured yesterday. That's where you can make up for, as you said, okay, some bad tackling. I know the tackling's been atrocious, but at some point you have to, what's going to happen when you're covering for 5, 6, 7 seconds? The quarterback evades pressure, the ball's caught, and now you got to go run missed tackles are going to pile up. Of course, you've seen the blown assignments, the Green Bay run up the middle, 11-yard, cruise down Titletown Row there, right in the end zone. You've seen the linebackers struggle, but they're rookies, and that's what they want to do. To me, I think it's up front. The run stopping ability has been non-existent, and the pass rush has been equally as concerning. And everybody on the back end, they're going to be the ones. Hey, it was you missed it. You just covered for 7 seconds, and you know what? I don't know. I think
that's I get that. In terms of the pass defense, I understand that, Charlie. But when you're talking about simple runs and the inability. One of the things in football you have to do if you're on the field on defense or on special teams, you have to be able to take the ball carrier to the ground. The Bengals are the worst team in the National Football League at doing that. Only Jacksonville, to your point, is worse at the pass rush rate and getting to the quarterback than are the Bengals. That's a deadly 1-2 combination, and that's in a nutshell why the Bengals have been so atrocious on defense.
And doesn't that sting a little bit? You say Jacksonville, and that was the team week 2 that was unloading on Burrow. You remember the start of that game. I mean,
do.
He was under duress from the first passing snap, and kind of goes to what Burrow said. Hey, at the beginning of the year, defense was playing pretty well, and we were kind of a mess. And then it's flip-flopped. It's just we said it last year. We're saying it feels like the perfect storm all over again, but you can only play that card once. This year it's you're out of that card's been played. So right. I'm just very interested to see how this shakes out.
Speaking with Charlie Clifford of Channel 5 in Cincinnati. I want to tell you about All Good Home Improvements. All Good has been helping homeowners like myself, like the lovely Deborah Ann, for 32 years. When we were looking for a home improvement company to install a new roof and a new gutter, the number one quality we were looking for is trust. For the last 32 years, All Good has been trusted to help homeowners like myself replace windows, install new vinyl siding, install new gutters, and professionally install a new roof. If you're getting your home ready for the winter months, and Lord knows with the weather we've had early this week, winter is on its way. There are energy-efficient windows that All Good Home Improvements can help you with, a roof inspection, or even a gutter inspection. They'd be glad to come out and do a free inspection. Ed Grant and the fine folks at All Good to see if your home is indeed ready for those coming winter months. All Good offers interest-free financing with payment starting at just $99 a month and no money down. And right now, All Good is offering a 50% off sale or buy one, get one free. If you need 10 windows, you get an additional $500 off on the purchase and 5 of those 10 windows for free by mentioning that you heard it here on the Jungle Roar Pod. Maybe you need 20 windows. You'll get 10 free and that additional $500 off by mentioning that you heard it right here on the Jungle Roar Pod during All Good's buy one, get one free offer. So call my friend Ed over at All Good for your free home inspection now at 513-247-2900, or you can simply visit their website at myallgoodhome.com. Back with Charlie Clifford of Channel 5 in Cincinnati. I appreciate him taking time out during as we get ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers, what is going to be a very busy week. We can talk a little basketball here before we get back to the business of the Bengals. Looking forward to Cincinnati-Dayton at Fifth Third Arena.
You took the words out of my mouth. I'm with you. I mean, any early forecast from the Trags Weather Center? What do you foresee happening tonight?
Let's see. I think the Bearcats win this game. I know Baba Miller has been sensational to start the season for the Bearcats. He's their key. As Baba Miller goes, they go. I think the Bearcats win this game on campus. By the way, the first time these two teams are meeting on campus in the rivalry, which is now going to be 93 games old tonight, since 2010. when I believe it was Dayton beat UC in the NIT. But anyway, I like UC in a close one. Look, the Heritage Bank Center is a fine arena downtown. It's great for some downtown business the way it has been in 2023 and 2024. This rivalry belongs on campus. College basketball games belong on campus. I will pound the office desk in my home for that until I'm blue in the face. Well, you got any predictions?
No, I agree. And I'm with you. We need to know more of these neutral site stuff.
No,
even the big team, even the blue chippers who are going to Atlanta so we can see Duke and UK play or whatever. Just do the home and home. It's the what happened to the experience of being a college player, and those are the games when you're on the road.
NIL is what happened, Charlie. But I
know, and I get it. But the TV money's still going to be there either way. They're still going to be. Hey, this is part of the ESPN contract. We're going to get this game. I guess, you'd rather put 25,000 people in the seats as opposed to, some of these college arenas, whatever.
By the way, before we move on to Duke Tobin talk, because we are going to get to it, my sympathy for Richard Pitino and Xavier. I think it's going to be a long, tough season. But look, as I tweeted this on Monday night from the Santa Clara game at Cintas, you knew this was coming for Xavier. They had a complete rebuild on their hands after Sean Miller left. So good luck to Richard Pitino. They'll have a couple of surprising wins, but I think brace yourself for a long season. I want to get back now to talking about the Bengals, talking about Duke Tobin, talking about why the Bengals won't restructure their front office, add more element, and not just scouts, because there's a lot of focus, Charlie, on, the Bengals need a bigger scouting department. That may be true, but I think they need more high-powered executive decisions made with people with eyes from the outside. Everything the Bengals do is from the inside. And just like in business, Charlie, if you don't have an external perspective to go along with your own perspective, I think you lose the forest for the trees. And I think that's what's happened with the Bengals and their ability to deftly or not deftly evaluate personnel. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, they need to find ways to find better players. And I think, if they asked me, which they never would, more scouts is number one. I think this day and age with the detective work that needs to go into, dealing with players who, let's face it, it's a different player coming out of college. They're getting paid. It's so hard to get an honest, I think, opinion from a coach at any level now, high school, college. No one's going to say, don't take this guy. He played for me. It's all part of, and I know that's been part of this for a long time, but it's just so hard to get a real opinion on somebody from their college or high school coach. They want that person to go on and to have a chance, and it will come back and feed into their tree. It's human nature, unless somebody's really, rubbed their head coach the wrong way and he's willing to speak candidly. You need to have so many boots on the ground to see, okay, I can watch the game film, but hey, what's his body language when he's coming off the field, sitting on the bench after they just gave up a 13-play drive to essentially lose the game? Is he launching his helmet, going off his teammates? Is he sitting there like, it looks like it's the second quarter of a week 2 game. Like this wasn't any big deal. I want to see, what are these guys made up in the heat of the battle when the bullets are flying, and a lot of that stuff. I feel like, you can watch the tape until your eyes bleed. I want to see the body language. I want to see, the stuff behind the scenes. I want to get the perspective of the friggin' security guard who watched this team walk in and out of the building every day. Oh yeah, this guy's late 10 times, 9 times out of 10. Oh, this guy's always, he's actually usually one of the first ones to leave once the team's technically cleared. And I don't know, maybe their staff is turning every stone they can. They say, hey, we're actually doing that. We don't need it. I just find it hard to believe in this day and age with the amount of information that's out there, with the talent pool where you can find guys at any school, big or small. There are so many great football players out there, that you can do it with that set of eyeballs. It's just, I think it's almost an impossibility. And I don't know if you're giving yourself, the best chance if you, if you keep doing that. It's got to be hard. There's only so many hours in a day.
Why do the Bengals have so much trouble drafting players, especially at the top of the draft recently? Because I think it's been pretty well documented that the Bengals defensively have not gotten the first rounds right when it comes to defensive linemen. They got Amarius Mims right, and they deserve full marks for that. But when it comes to Myles Murphy and so far Shamar Stewart, the early returns are on Shamar anyway are not great. He was headed in the right direction, got injured, but that you need, when you have so many big contracts right now on the payroll, you have to have, and so many people have said this, you have to have productive first and second and third round players, and the Bengals don't.
No, you do. And really that could be the end of the conversation right there. I mean, it's just, that's the bottom line, especially when you're in an organization that really prides itself on drafting and developing. I did the Packers, I covered the Packers for 2 years, and they were the same way. And it's difficult, but at the end of the day, it is the smart way to play the game, due to how often you have to overpay in free agency. And usually those guys, it's such a young league. But I go back to the pass rush. The jury's still far from coming back with anything on Shamar Stewart. I mean, he had the injury early with the ankle. Now he has the knee. It's going to be, whatever he can piece together the rest of the year. I mean, you're right. It's an unfortunate start. It's not a good start, but I don't think it's indicative of who he might be in the back half of next year or year 3 or whatever goes there. I mean, Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, who, again, speaking of decisions and riding out the storm with your coach and your GM, obviously Indy could have ripped apart the plan last year with Steichen and Ballard, and they decided not to, and they found a quarterback who can run Steichen's offense, and now they're the best story in the NFL next to Seattle. So, is it the same set of circumstances in Cincinnati? No, because the hourglass is ticking with Joe Burrow, and everyone knows that.
Yes.
And you don't have time to play the safe game. So, that's their decision. But yeah. Back to the D line. Ballard would always say, you guys, we draft edge rushers and you want them to be Deacon Jones in year 1. He's like, the hardest position to jump outside of quarterback in the NFL is edge rusher, because all your old tricks, they don't work. These guys are too big. They're too fast. They're too smart on the edges. You need to give an edge rusher 3 years to see what you've got there. And you know what? I mean, Myles Murphy, you're in year 3. So that conversation is a little different with him right now. Shamar Stewart, I just think it's as frustrating as it's been, doesn't mean it still can't be a really good pick.
No, and I've written this a couple of times for CLNS, Cincy.com, and that is the reason the Bengals deserve criticism with the front office is they draft young players, then it is almost as if, well, they're not going to surround them with veteran players or the right veteran players to complement the rookies. And that's where I think the Bengals get into a lot of trouble, is that they expect the linebacking situation is probably the prime example of that this year. And now Logan Wilson was traded, to the Dallas Cowboys. But that's a situation where you expect these two players, and Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter, to come in and play terrific and be stalwarts of the middle of your defense right away. I think that's unrealistic.
Yeah, I agree. And, the Logan Wilson thing is, I mean, and I should have seen this earlier. We should have, when they drafted Barrett Carter, that should have been a flashing red light that they don't believe in Logan Wilson anymore. It made no they had a nice little reservoir there with Shaka Hayward and Joe Giles Harris and Muma Jung Meadow, who's still on the team. You know, they had that kind of solved. They had already signed Oren Burks. You know, so that kind of told you what the conversation was like in that room. Pratt was obviously already out the door, even though he was technically still on the roster.
Right.
You know, that should have been, you know, I think this decision was made in the off season, you know, and Al Golden coming over and their relationship, and because he was his linebackers guru and the success obviously was there. So that kind of camouflaged that a little bit. But, you know, I know Zach Taylor's taking the heat. Oh, he's the one who made the decision to do this. I think this was, you know, at multiple levels, even long before the season started.
We have to wrap it up here. I know you've got to go, Charlie, but your thoughts, because you talk to a ton of people in the organization and outside the organization for that matter, but you talk to a ton of people. What do you make of the relationship professionally between Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin?
Well, I've never seen anything that says, oh, these guys don't get along, or, you know, one is trying to really put the blame of this year on the other. You know, I know Zach Taylor always goes back to, you know, even when we kind of get him, you know, talking just, you know, off the cuff a little bit, you know, they have their Monday morning meeting, win or lose, 0600 at Paycor. They sit down and they talk through everything. What do we need this week? Where's things going? Big picture, you know, what went well last week, you know. So I think at the end of the day, as long as those meetings and the people only who are in those know, as long as those are still, productive, as long as they're still pulling this rope together.
Right,
yeah. Because at the end of the day, you just saw in New York what happened. Brian Daboll is out. Joe Shane still has a job. You know, why did Mara decide that this is on Daboll and not the guy who, let's face it, kind of played the wrong hand with Daniel Jones and Saquon? You know, and obviously the whole world got to see that because of the Hard Knocks, and that'll never happen ever again.
No.
So, you know, I think, you know, does one of the two try to put it in the Blackburns or Browns' mind that, hey, this isn't my fault, this is this guy's fault? I haven't seen any of that yet.
See, here's the dysfunction of all of this is I don't get the sense that anybody's in charge. I get the sense that if the Browns and the Blackburns are the ultimate football decision makers, that's a problem. Because for many, many, many years, you can say they got the quarterback right. Obviously they did with Joe Burrow. Got Jamar Chase right, got T. Higgins right, got Amarius Mims right. They haven't hit nearly enough in their draft picks and their free agents to show me that they can sustain football building roster 101. I just don't see it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen other teams. You've seen other teams as well. And if you cannot consistently build a quality competitive football roster, you're going to run into what the Bengals run into. They'll get good, maybe very good, maybe a run to the Super Bowl, then it falls off like that. And that's what frustrates Bengal fans. It's like they've been promised for decades now that once we get the quarterback right, we get to a Super Bowl, we're going to sustain that success. The window is going to be open. This is the new standard after they won in 2021 and 2022. And it falls off a cliff, and fans are frustrated. Why does that continue to happen?
You're on the money. And while it is, you know, rare, it's not, you know, it's not completely unique. Very similar pulse right now in Buffalo. Yeah. Why is this team getting blown out by the Dolphins? Why are they not, you know, why haven't they knocked down the door? Same thing in Baltimore until a couple weeks ago. Everyone was prepping their headlines. John Harbaugh's finally, you know, it's time to change the voice. It's, you know, they've tried as many times as they could It's time to change the voice. So the difference with those two teams is they're getting in the dance and they are giving themselves a chance, so that's where the conversation starts for me at the end of the year. They sit down, and is this year another, well, guess what? Joe Burrow got hurt. So, let's just try to move forward together and know that ultimately played the biggest role this season. Or is this the year it's going to be different and say, no, this hasn't been trending in the right direction for now 3 years, despite the Burrow injuries. And now is the time to, make the one change you'll probably be able to make with Joe, with Joe there in his prime. But, there's 8 games left. There's
a lot of football to be played, and I get that.
That's still a little while off.
These questions always come to the fore when a team like the Bengals, and when the Bengals, not a team like, when the Bengals struggle, these are the questions that seem to be unique to the Bengals. Ownership, scouting, lack of general manager, toughness from the head coach, attitude from the head coach that shows itself on the field as a mentally and physically tough team. Bengal fan, when you bring up all of those subjects that I just listed, Bengal fans just get upset. Some Bengal fans lose their minds because they're like, why aren't we better in any of those? For so long now. I'm going to let you go, Charlie. What are you working on for Channel 5?
No, we're going to see it Fifth Third tonight. Can't wait for that one. We'll have coverage in Pittsburgh, obviously, this weekend. We'll have Moeller and St. X in Dayton Friday on the Blitz, plus the full studio show at 11 with all our regional semifinals. There's so many good ones. I don't want to
covering Taft, Indian Hill at my alma mater.
What are you saying before they run out and onto the field? Have you prepared your speech?
I haven't, but I'm going to stop by there.
Because Taft's pretty darn good. But no, I love John Rodenberg too. I got to cover him in Indy, coincidentally, after he was Moeller, and he won in Indy. He's won here. He's such a good coach, as is Coach Washington or Coach Williams, and the whole crew at Taft. So that's an awesome game too.
I'm going to let you go. I know you've got to head into the office. I want to thank you so much, Charlie, for joining me.
No, this was fun.
And we will be catching up during the week at Paycor.
Yeah, pal.
His name is Charlie Clifford. He does a fabulous job covering all things Cincinnati sports, the sports director at WLWT in Cincinnati. My name is Mike Petralia, Trags. I want to thank our great sponsors, as always, Prize Picks and All Good Home Improvements. And until Sunday night, when I speak to you from Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, along with Skinny, Richard Skinner of Local12.com, keep that jungle roaring.